Yeah, you can do. But I'll just say a few things before.
Right, I'll leave them.
Yeah, one thing I was going to say when I first looked through all your images, one thing that impressed me was there's a lot of people who have sort of made some sort of bold sort of choices in the way they've done their pictures, which I think is good. The downside is that sometimes if you're bold, it's one of those things that people will like them or people will not like them. But don't be afraid to be bold. I think there's sort of like different ways of being creative. There's people, like I was saying to somebody earlier, when you sort of like get a theme competition, it does sort of challenge you, take you out of your comfort zone, which has got to be a good thing. However, having said that, we've got a theme competition this week. Architecture, I've just gone back and sort of like gone back in the archives and dragged 3 building pictures out. Good building pictures, mind you. But the next one we've got is sort of, it's a small world, and I've got to be a bit more creative for that. If you do go back and draw, certainly for this competition, if you do go back and sort of draw out your archives, make sure you sort of give it the correct title. Normally, I won't mark things down because of the title. I have done on some of these because you'll see why as we go through it. So let's get on with it. Starting with the monochrome pictures first.
Yes. Got it first time.
Right, the Dam Busters. As we said at the beginning, I was told it was inspired by a book or a film. So there are some which are very literal. There are some which are not quite so literal. This is pretty literal. It's really good detail in it. I love the way you've got sort of the different sort of contrast. You've gone in very sort of like close. Now I'm guessing it's sort of like at some sort of photographic event, and then it's been sort of stage set for you. But you don't sort of see things like this every day. I think it's absolutely superbly lit. You've gone in quite tight, which suits the subject. You can see all the details sort of laying. You always sort of see almost see every individual rivet along the aircraft. It's got sort of plenty of atmosphere. How could you improve it? I will sort of say that the points that I point out, there are some. I always say I'm a commentator, not a judge. There are always points which you can look at which will improve it, but there are some times where there are things you put in which are mistakes. I'll try and differentiate between the two of them, but sometimes you've got to interpret that yourself. So on this picture, the only thing I think could have improved, this sort of like wheel gets in the way a little bit, but other than that, I think that's a really good picture, and that one scored 20. Right, do androids dream of electric sheep? Now this is one of those that's a little bit Marmite, I think, as I mentioned earlier. Very sort of creative, very graphical. Is it a photograph? Is it sort of a graphic picture? Is it just created in Photoshop? I don't know, it's one of those things where, first of all, for anybody, I hope if people don't know the title, I have had a good look through some of these and Googled some. Unfortunately, I didn't know this one, because Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep is the book that inspired Blade Runner, the film Blade Runner. If you don't know what Blade Runner is, do watch the film. The way you've interpreted the title, I think is quite good. I will say, how much photographic content is there in there? How much is actually sort of like Photoshop or graphic works? I don't know. I love the way you've got those sort of sheets all lined up and sort of disappearing into the distance. So you've got this android looking very much like a montage of mobile phones. So although there are some questions about that, I did quite like that image. I gave that 16.
Steve, what
Right, Born Free, book and a film. Quite a little sort of interpretation of the film, because it's about sort of like a lion and a lion cub. Is it captive? Is it in the wild? I don't think it really matters because the way you presented the subject works really well. You've got a nice sort of like diffused background, but you've got it's sharp where it really matters, which is round the face of those two lines, and there's a good connection between the pair of them, which is quite important. You'll see there are quite a few pictures where you've got connections, some where you haven't. In this instance, you've got the sort of like the sort of relationship between, I'm guessing, the mother and the cub. Cub's fairly well grown up, but you've fitted it well in the frame. You've got a very traditional, excuse me a minute, you've got a very sort of traditional, somewhat L-shaped composition. Works really well. There's nothing in the picture that distracts. Lovely picture. 19 marks. Right, The Wolf of Wall Street. Again, suitable title. The wolf's masquerading a little bit as a husky, but we'll let you off there. You do get sort of like that flavour. I just like the way you've got that sort of vision running back into the picture. Got quite good detail. It's very kindly looked at the camera for you. What I'm not quite so keen on is you probably could have chosen a little bit less. It's a very sort of like, I'm not saying untidy, but there's sort of a lot of distractions along the street. Could have probably chosen a slightly better alley. Don't know where it was taken, whether it was in Lancaster or not, but there may be somebody who recognises if it is. And I say, it does go back, lead you back into the picture, but I just sort of like think the sort of sides of it are a little bit untidy. Nice idea though, and I like the way, I'm guessing you probably sort of went out and actually got this picture, but I say I've only scored that one 13, unfortunately. Under the Greenwood Tree, again suitable title, suitable sort of picture that sort of matches the title. Love the sky on this one. You've got sort of these beautiful clouds running over the top. You've got this tree, and again, it's quite a sort of classical composition. The way you sort of set the tree up on the right-hand side of the picture. The gate, there'll be a lot of people say you need to have the gate open. It doesn't worry me. That gate's quite good as it is. The only thing wrong with the gate is that you have, I'm guessing you've used a wide-angle lens, but you do seem to have a little bit of distortion where that gate's sort of lacking a little bit of the perspective isn't quite right. But again, I think you could have probably, it would have improved it to sort of just maybe sort of like treat the pitch for a bit of a perspective and sort of maybe stretch that out at the top a little bit to pull that in at the bottom just to straighten that gate out. Love the fact it's contrasting. You do get sort of like a feeling of a slightly windswept moor, and I think it's a very pleasant picture. I think it's stronger ones here tonight, but that one scored quite a reasonable 15.
Keith Taylor.
House fell down by Elton John. Now I can see some people covering their faces. Think it's a song rather than a book or a film. So I am going to say that I am going to mark it down because of that. But I will sort of assess it on the photographic merit of it. It's infrared type effect. Don't know whether it's infrared completely. You have got sort of good detail in the house. You've got details on the rafters or what's left of them. Right, the fact you've got all this foliage growing out the top. You've got this sort of like rather bright sort of foliage down the bottom, which does pull the eye down a little bit, and the dark sky probably has a little bit too much contrast in there. I think you could have probably sort of like altered the balance of it. So the house is quite good. The house is quite good on the balance of contrast. The sky, I think, is a little bit too dark, and I'd like to have seen a bit more out of those clouds. If you darken this down a little bit, I always find when doing it with a black and white or colour, you sometimes have to sort of like just sort of dodge and burn some areas in, and sort of give a little bit more light in the other area. It's just like a classic dark room. People sort of like say, oh, Photoshop, it's cheating. You can still use the same techniques you ever used in a dark room by just sort of burning things along, just shading it down a little bit, just to make it stronger. So I think the house is good. The grass is a little bit too bright. The sky's a little bit too dark. And because it's a song, not a book, I've given it 13. The Bible. Book, Phil? It's a book. You have gone very literal here on taking this picture of a Bible open, and to be honest, you can read every single word on it, which is good. But it's also, because that depth of field is also partly its downfall as well, because you can see every detail in this sort of like rendered wall behind. I'd like to see it that a little bit softer as well. You've got this sort of bright area at the top, which again, like the other one, only this is too bright at the top, and your eye does tend to get pulled out by that. You've also got the candle on the right hand side. You try to give it a little bit of atmosphere. I don't think it's worked. It looks very artificial, that flame. You're going to turn around and probably tell me that's how it appeared, but it just doesn't, I don't think it adds anything to it. I'd like you seen that, pull that Bible away from the wall and make it background a little bit sort of like more diffuse. So it is quite good to try simple things, but it's very difficult to actually do it really well. You'll see some later on. So the Bible got 13. Endless Summer, again, appropriate title, gives a very good feeling of a sort of late evening in the summer. I love the way you've got these figures are sort of like set out in two, almost sort of like two pairs. I mean, they look like sort of kids, teenagers who are just walking along the beach. So that impressed me, and I say you've got a lot of space for them to walk into. Some might say too much space. I think it sort of gives that feeling of emptiness there. The only thing that you haven't got really is there's absolutely, you look at the sky and it's absolutely white. I'd like to see a little more detail in that, to be perfectly honest. Or maybe even you could have probably sort of like taken a little bit off the top. I just think it just gives it. I do like the fact you've got it silhouetted. It just takes away. It just sort of takes a little bit. It's just a little bit too bright and a little bit too featureless. And I say you could have probably cut it down a little bit. Having said that, Endless Summer got. I scored it 15.
Stephen Morrow.
Amazing Caves, a 3D film. It is a 3D film. I did check this one on Google. You have got sort of like a good feeling of it's very. I must admit, it's very difficult to even attempt to take pictures in caves. It's ridiculously difficult, but you have got a sort of feeling of all these stalactites. Yes, that's right. The one's going down. Have you given it? I'd like to see you get a. It's very, dare I say, two-dimensional. I'm sure you could have used some kind of something like a high-pass filter to get a little bit more definition around them and just to give a little bit more effect. I've tried some of these myself where you use sort of like poster edges on something like this, poster edge filters. If you do it subtly, it'll work. You've got to be a little bit careful because, like most filters in Photoshop, they're rather too harsh, I find. You end up, but you can sort of apply certain things like high pass filters, poster edges, and that, just to give them things a little bit more of an edge and just make it a little bit more definition. I say it is a little bit flat. There's nothing for your eyes to focus on either, really. I'll give you some marks for the point of view that you actually sort of attempted to get that, and you have got quite. It's sharp throughout most of the bits, to be honest. So Amazing Caves got 13. Reach for the Stars by Serge Bloch. Very graphic image this again. You've got sort of like I wasn't quite sure where this building is. It looks a bit like the Shard, but it's not, I know. But you've got that sort of image. This building going up to a point. And you've got a starry sky in the at the top. Now I do hope you took that starry sky yourself.
Yeah.
If you did, you're very naughty. So yeah, I do quite like that. It's got a very good dynamic to it. The only thing I would sort of say is where does your eye sort of rest? Takes you up, but then where do you look? Is it this in the plant here? I don't know. But it is quite a strong. It is quite a strong image, and I do quite like the starry sky in the background. So Reach for the Stars got 16.
Brad G.
Right, Rush. There's going to be the purists out there who sort of like there's nothing sharp on this picture, but I don't think it's meant to be. You obviously either gone for intentional camera movement, or I think you've probably used a sort of very slow shutter speed to get movement throughout the picture. So I think the actual sort of the way you've done it, it's quite good. It gives a very good feeling of flow of movement through the picture. What I think would have made it a little bit stronger is if you'd have tried a little bit more sort of contrast in here, because it is very sort of, though it's got movement and flow, it's got sort of very, it's very sort of muted tones. Maybe you should do just slightly faster shutter speed. It's one of those things where you've got to try hard, because if you just do it slightly too long, everything just blurs. But you've got this guy who's fairly stationary. I know you can't sort of dictate where this guy stands usually, but you have got that writing which does distract a little bit in the background. But I like the fact again you're quite sort of bold. I don't know how many attempts you took to get this, but if you took quite a lot, then you've done quite well. That one got 15 as well.
Melissa Butterworth.
Warhorse. Now this isn't it's not a literal sort of like interpretation of the film Warhorse or the book Warhorse, but it's the wrong sort of era. What I do like about this picture though is you've focused on this guy on the back of this horse, and the guy on the back of the horse is really you've got great detail. He's really quite sharp. You haven't had the light to work for you, but you've got him sort of suitably backlit. You've got the light coming through his plume on his head. And you've got sort of like quite sort of bright, a little bit of brightness on the grass, but you do get, although it's sort of you use this fairly fast shutter speed, you've got that impression of movement, which is very good, and the way you've got sort of plenty of space room to move, and you sort of framed these pikemen quite well. It would have been quite easy to sort of drop it a bit further and get rid of the tops of those pikes or lose some of that detail. You've got a bit of a context to the scene. And I say you've got the scene, you've got the movement, you've got reasonable exposure, you've got detail in the shadows, you've not blown out any of the highlights. It is a little bit bright on the grass. Maybe you could have just darkened that down a touch, but it's one of those pictures. The more I look at it, the more I like it. There are some pictures which you look at, the more you look at it, the less you like them. We'll come to one of those later, but so Warhorse got 18. I like the fact there was a reaction to that one. I always I say to people that sort of like you don't need to just listen and get the remarks that come from me or any judge, but you also get the reaction from the people in the room as well. That's probably more on it. People when they first see it, they'll react to a picture and they'll say it's an honest reaction. Sometimes it's not always the one you want to hear, but important thing about this picture, it has got that sort of humour. You know, you've got this picture of this giant mural reaching for that guy. Was that guy there or has he been added in? It doesn't really matter, because if he's been added in reasonably well and he's been put in the right position. If he was cycling past, well captured. As I do quite sort of. I've seen several pictures of this before, and to be honest, you've been very good in actually sort of getting quite a tight crop round there. And I say I like the way you've got this sort of light path coming on here as well. I think it's good also, whether you have that light on or not, again, it just sort of helps you, it helps picking out, and you've got good detail on this mural. At the end of the day, you've got to be a little bit careful sometimes because you're actually taking a picture of somebody's artwork, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but sort of like, that, if it hadn't been for that guy makes the picture, to be honest. And like I say, it adds the humour, which is really good. So let's see what we'll give them that one. When I shrunk the kids got 17.
Carol Weatherly.
The Third Nun. Again, suitable book title. I quite like the, dare I say, the Cephaline kilns. I think they probably are. And I quite like this sort of like gangster cowboy figure you've got at the right hand side. Do the two go together, or do they say the Third Nun? You probably guess from the fact that I've said a cowboy and the sort of like lime kiln that I'm sort of like it does make me sort of, it does sort of make me ask, does this represent the Third Nun? There's going to be somebody here who thinks that lime kiln and Harry Lime go together, but well, somebody got it, thank you. So as a composite work, it shows a certain degree of skill. Is the lighting correct on this guy? Ooh. And personally, I don't think so. I've tried. I do several. Don't do a great deal of composites, but I always sort of feel sometimes that people just put a figure in and they don't sort of consider the lighting at the time. You've got lighting on that side of the gun, and the light's coming from there. So what's lighting that? Anyway, but again, don't stop doing these sort of things because the more you try them, the better you get at them, to be honest. So the Third Man, I did quite like him though, because the Third Man scored 14. Earthquake weather, it's in Powers. Again, a slight, well, to my mind, I would say you've got to be a little bit careful because what's sort of like mainstream and iconic to me might be sort of really obscure to somebody else. Never heard of this book before, so I did have to Google it. And I think you've been sort of like quite creative in the way you set things up. You've got this sort of like feeling of movement by the figure sort of moving, or you using multiple exposures. You've got the background really blurred. You've chosen a nice sort of choppy sea. So I did like the creative idea of it. I think it sort of gets that sort of feeling of an earthquake. The only thing I would question is, and it's not a big question, but again, it's a creative thing which you might like to consider. Is sort of like if the earth is quaking, those railings are perfectly still. But the feeling of it when I sort of saw it was sort of I thought it was quite appropriate. I thought the effect worked quite well. I say I don't know whether you use multiple exposures. I don't know whether you use sort of like just a long exposure and got the person to move around. But I think it works quite well. I get it on 17.
Kirsty Middleton.
You're my driving wheels supremes. Yes, it's a song again, I'm afraid. As a picture, I quite like it. It's sort of had this sort of like semi-solarized effect. You've got sort of like a nice sort of shape there. It works. The fact that you use black and white works well there, I think. But it's a film. It's not a film or a book. So I'm afraid I only gave You're My Driving Wheel 14. Casino Royale. Yeah, some laughs there. Yeah, I think some people probably recognise. Is this somewhere in Lancaster? Yeah. So, having said that, you know, you've made the most of the opportunity because there's an Aston Martin parked outside. You've sort of like let your imagination run away. And to be honest, as a photograph, you've done it quite well. You've got that down in the bottom right. You've got this tree sort of framing it nicely on the left hand side as you look at it. I'm guessing it's probably some sort of restaurant, wine bar, or something like that. I don't know. I'm sure somebody will tell me afterwards. I think you've done quite well, sort of in the way you compose the picture. However, sort of like you've got to be a little bit careful. I think it's obviously taken some time at night, sort of late on. And as we'd always sort of say, you've got to be careful because you just get interior lights there, and the external light there, and there. Does sort of like burn out very easily. Your eyes do tend to get drawn then. And I say you've got to try and get the exposure just right. Ideally, I say that car wasn't parked there necessary for that long. I don't know. You'll try and catch the just at sort of like dusk so you can balance the light a little better. I say I'm guessing this was taken late-ish in the evening or when it was dark, so you get this really sort of harsh contrast. You might be able to try and see if you can get a little better at it, but I don't know. But as I say, it's a nice composition. Your interpretation of Casino Royal a la Lancaster, and I thought it worked quite well. Casino Royal scored 15.
Colin Yates.
Steps plus or minus 30. I didn't count how many there are. One guess there's 9. 7, 8, 9. I like the fact you're a little bit cheeky there, but having said that, you've got sort of like you've got sort of a lead in up the steps. They're a natural sort of lead into your door. To be honest, the exposure of it and the contrast on it are all right. I think you were sort of like trying it on a little too hard though, but every credit for getting one in. So steps scored 14. Marley's Ghost. Again, there's quite a different sort of choice here. Again, it's a very sort of like interpretation. Now, I don't know whether you used any effect on this, or it looks very sort of like infrared type of effect. And you can almost sort of like feel you want to reach out and bang that knocker, and just by doing it, you'll sort of summon the ghost of Marley. And I think it works reasonably well. It's a very sort of simple, sort of like still life. It would have been quite easy to lose a lot of detail around here, but your detail's quite sort of like well defined. The only thing I found slightly distracting on this one was these two big bolts at the top. I'd have darkened them down a bit. Just that edge around the top just sort of tends to pull your eye away. And this is what you want to look at. It's quite sort of a bold sort of close-up of it, and yeah, this does distract again. You could have just shaded out a ribbon, darkened it down a little bit, and I think you'd have got a stronger picture. However, having said that Marley's Ghost got 16.
Alison Townley.
Tomb Raider, yes. Some big wreck of a Land Rover that's been sort of like through some action film. I do sort of get where the connection is with sort of like Tomb Raider. I think you perhaps have been generous in your interpretation. I think this sort of like was obviously in a bit of a scrapyard, and then saying it's probably sort of like, it's probably not helped by this sort of corrugated sort of like shed around here. It does have a certain air of dereliction about it, which is good, but it didn't quite sort of do it for me, I'm afraid. Tomb Raider got 14. The Institute, again, suitable title. Again, very much like the reach for the sky, or not reach for the stars. Sorry, reach for the stars. You got very sort of exercising perspective here. You got this sort of like stair one, and it's good. You can see the stairs. You've got a sort of repeating pattern there. Somebody stood there. You got a repeating pattern of those stairs going up. Could you have lost a little bit more off this side? I don't know. So I'm just going to sort of end up sort of put this. If you just sort of like looked at it from sort of like there, accentuated stairs even more, maybe made it slightly stronger. Having said that, you've still got that problem of where does your eye rest? It takes you up through the pitch but doesn't lead you anywhere. So the Institute scored 15.
Caroline Phillips.
Now, Blow Me a Kiss. I like the effect you've used here. I think you've used it quite well. You've got these two girls sort of blowing these dust and sparkly things straight at you. I think a lot of that's been added in sort of like in Photoshop. That works quite well. And I like the way you've actually sort of set them up with their hands just sort of like below there, just with them sort of like blowing sort of into the picture. So if you've got your camera a bit, I don't know whether it's sort of like somebody told me what you need to use. It's not chalk, it's not talcum powder, but I'm sure somebody will tell me later. But you blow this dust and it sort of like comes towards you, and I say you've got this sort of like sparky effect. The only thing I think would have made it slightly stronger is you've got sort of like quite a lot of dust on the girls' faces. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh there and sort of like say expecting you to dust them off, but I do like the effect you've got there. And I think sort of like it's quite complicated to set up, but I think that one I've given that one 17.
Ruth Lockery.
Into the Woods, very sort of dark picture. Thing you've got right there is you've got that strong you've got a strong lead into the picture, and that takes you into the woods. Unfortunately, what you have done here is you sort of like it's a very it's probably meant to be dark, but it's very sort of like dark and gloomy now. You just need to see a little bit more definition, a little bit more contrast there. The path down here is quite good. That's the one. But again, you could have probably used a bit more contrast. I don't know what technique you've used to actually sort of get this picture, whether you've actually gone into sort of like just converted it or desaturated the colour version. It just you look at the picture and you don't immediately sort of like see anything. And I think the possibility is there to actually sort of make this picture a lot stronger just by using higher contrast and using different techniques to sort of make things stand out. As it is, it's really a bit of a, I hate to say it's sort of quite a, when I say it's a dull picture, it's dull from the point of view of the light in it. You need to get some kind of light or some kind of structure from that. And it would lift that picture. And I don't think it's sort of necessarily an award-winning picture, but I think there's a lot more in that picture that you could bring out, to be honest. So, Into the Woods, scored 11. Good reaction again. Silence of the Lambs. Again, this is quite a bold choice, and there's a couple of pictures here that have chosen the same title. What I do admire is that the way you've done it has been totally different, which is good because it just shows that sort of like the creative side. I do quite like this sort of like the sort of contrast you've got. You've been very unconventional, and you've put these two lambs. It would have been quite easy to put them slap bang in the picture here, or sort of slap bang in the middle, even on the horizontal. You put them way over to the right hand side. Why? I don't know, but I think it works. I think you've sort of got those two little lamps sort of just over there, and you've got all this empty space. Now there will be a lot of people who don't like the empty space, but I think you've got the empty space reasonably well. If I'm, again, being a little bit harsh, I'll sort of darken this area down just a little bit, just to keep them, because they are the lightest part in the picture. Your eye is going to immediately drawn to them. I think probably even on the screen, this screen probably works a little bit better when you're looking at a smaller screen at home. But I think that I think your eyes do get drawn to them, and as I say, there is that element of humour about it. And so I've given this silence alarm 16.
Anissa Sadat.
The Martian. Again, it's a bit of a mysterious one, this, and so like you've got to be a little bit careful. I think you'll see it more in the colour section where you've got pictures, and I don't mind a bit of mystery. Bus judges are very sort of simple people, as I'm sure you'll tell me. But I'm not really sure what this picture's, why you're picking on this oil captain calling him a Martian. I do like the fact you've got that mystery. You've got this sort of like light behind you, you've got this sort of like light lit from the front, and you've got this object down here which I have absolutely no idea what it is, and you've got sort of like a curved surface. It's a bold attempt, but I don't think really it quite works, to be honest. It just does look too much like a cat, to be perfectly honest. But you have tried something a little bit different. So I've given you a score of 14. Caught inside the matrix. Again, going back to the one we had earlier on, do androids dream of electric sheep? This is very sort of bold, a very sort of bold technique. You've gone for sort of like this person looks like a bit like a runner, and you sort of like use this effect. I don't know how you've achieved it, but it looks like zeros and ones. It looks a bit like chainmail. I don't know what you've used to create the effect, but the way you merge them together does work quite well, and I think it shows good technique. And I think it's getting quite a bold interpretation. I think it works really well. I think you could probably develop something like this a little bit further, but I think tonight it merits quite a high score of 18.
Chris Jones.
The Silent Bell. I had to look this one up on Google, but there is a book called The Silent Bell. So how have you ended this? You've obviously been somewhere where there's been a bell, just laying there waiting for things to happen. Obviously not going to make a noise, that bell. So I think the way you sort of set the scene has been quite interesting. You've got sort of like this door here, you just only show part of the bell, but you've got that sort of layer of dust on it and stuff behind it, which looks a bit like a car tyre there, but you've got this stuff behind it which shows a certain degree of dereliction. I quite like the way you've done that sort of part of the door. It would have been quite easy just to take more of that door out, but I think you've just left enough in just to give you a lead into that picture, and I think works quite well. What I would have liked to have seen maybe is just this area here is a little bit on the right side, and again you could perhaps done some local work there just to sort of darken it down a bit, and maybe vignette it a little bit at this corner, because again it just sort of like distracts a little bit. But again, they're sort of like improvements rather than sort of like errors. So I gave The Silent Bell 15.
Carolyn Phillips.
Hobbit Hole at Hobbiton. The Hobbits. I have no idea where you took this picture, but it looks like the Hobbit house that's in The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. again, like the one, going back to the one we had a little bit earlier into the dark wood one, you've got, there's no sort of real whites, apart from the top where you slightly burnt it out, you've no real whites or no real blacks there. Again, I think the subject's not framed, it's framed reasonably well. You've got sort of detail in the grass, you've got sort of like this, the actual door's a little bit central, but slightly off centre. And it's framed by these two windows and all this foliage around here. Again, it's very sort of like flat, the way it's lit and the way you present it is very flat. You just need to work out a bit, get a bit more brightness and contrast into it. You've got to be a little bit careful with the sky because that's sort of like burnt out. So again, that doesn't distract because you've cropped it quite close there, which works quite well. Your actual composition looks really good. But I say it's just sort of getting the right, and again, I don't know whether you've just gone for a sort of simple conversion or desaturation from a colour picture. If you have, you need to sort of like be able to put a little more thought into it. It's just that practice of doing it because you can end up with sort of, I'm not really great at black and white, but I do try hard and I have gradually improved. One day I'll be good at it, but I say you just need to try get a sort of a mixture of tones throughout that. And I say it does take a bit of practice on how to do that, but I say it's sort of like it's learning which areas to sort of accentuate. And I say you can go into Photoshop and just pick areas just to give them a little bit more contrast and a little more sort of like a little bit more degree of sharpness on it. So do keep taking the pictures. Because I say I've come across people before who just sort of you've got to be a little bit careful when you're just because you don't know whether this is a complete beginner or somebody who's just done something in black and white for the first time. I say if you're not experienced, ask somebody in the club and stuff. Well, how do we do this? Some people are quite willing to tell you, others less so. It's just a case of finding the person who you sort of can convey that message to. So the Hobbit hole got 11. House of Flying Arrows. Now, I thought this was a play on words with the House of Flying Daggers, but it's not. There is actually a film, The House of Flying Arrows, about darts, strangely enough. So I sort of thought, well, okay, that's appropriate for the title. But then I had a bit of a think about it. House of Flying Arrows, I'm guessing by the sort of condition of these darts, it was taken sort of like at a sort of local establishment rather than sort of like a major tournament. But you sort of like think that if you're there, yes there are arrows, yes there is on a dartboard. Are they flying? Well, how difficult would it have been to get a flying arrow? I think you could have tried a little bit harder on this one, to be perfectly honest. It is well framed, but it's not really saying what it is on the tin, and it's sort of like I think probably would it look better in colour? I don't think so, but I think you could have if you'd have got that ability to sort of, or the access to people throwing darts. Just making sure there's no dart. Oh, there's a dartboard in here. I'll try later. So House of Flying Arrows got 13. Freddy's Revenge, Nightmare on Elm Street. Quite highly effective. You've tried using here. You've got sort of this like triple effect of the thing, of the person going back in the background. You've gone sort of like for an effect which sort of blurs this clawed hand and sort of focuses on his face. Now, I had a little think about this, and I sort of thought, well, have you got the area of focus quite right? Should you have concentrated on the clawed hand, then his face a bit more blurred? I think that would have worked a little better, not knowing what the hand looks like. I'm assuming if you've got a reasonable sort of like impression of his claw, I think that would have been a little bit more sort of scary having his face, because unfortunately you look at his face and you can see it's obviously a mask. Well, I would hope it's a mask. But you've got his face, and it would have. You've got to try and get that balance up. You've got good differential focus, and I think it should have been. I think to me it would have been slightly more scary the other way around, to be perfectly honest. But I like the way you've done that. And Freddy's Revenge gets 15.
Carol Weatherly.
Right, Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. There's you have gone out of your way to sort of like shock people here, I think. You have that sort of shock value. Again, is that going to be popular with people? I don't know, it depends. Sometimes, does it say Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels to you? It says a bit more Peaky Blinders to me, just by the fact the way you got the hat there. I was saying, it is meant to shock. You have gone for sort of like a grainy type effect, which sort of like helps. It gives it a bit of atmosphere. I'll be perfectly honest on that. It does sort of slightly disturb me, and I think that's what it's meant to do. But it's not a picture I'm particularly fond of, to be honest. But having said that, there are some people who find there is that sort of shock value, and it's done quite well. I gave it 16.
Tina Cordukes.
Yeah, there's a rumble there. A song again, I'm afraid. It's a nice picture. I've got to be a little bit careful because I think I've seen this one before. I came 2 years ago. So make sure you don't repeat the same picture if you can. A picture of a mill family, some Memworks is good. Does it fit with the brief? I'm afraid not. Smokestack gets 14. Lord of the Rings, Gollum, my precious. A cute, rather slightly bedraggled squirrel. I get the sort of connection with the sort of like guarding his precious, which actually you can't see here, but assuming you've got some sort of something hidden away there, which gives that impression. As a squirrel picture, it does have a little bit of the R factor. However, you're a little bit soft around the area that matters around his eyes. You need that to be sharp. It's a cute picture, but you need to be a little bit sharper around the eyes. Gollum, my precious, got 13. Cemetery Gates. Now then, I think somebody listened to judges too much here on this one. You always find, I mentioned it in going back to the Greenwood tree, I mentioned about the gates being open and shut. A lot of people sort of say, oh, you need a gate to sort of pull you into the picture. So what have you done here? You've got the gate there, it's open. Does it pull you into the picture? Yeah, but you're run straight into a hedge. I think if you're looking at cemetery gates, and to be honest, what I do like about this picture, you've got this sort of like, I don't know where it's taken, looks like a misty day, well, it could be a wet day. But you've got either a misty or a wet day, and you've got that sort of atmosphere of the cemetery with those sort of trees. That's it. The point is not working, but you've got this image of the trees in the mist, really quite atmospheric. And I think you've got a good sort of feeling with these gates. They're quite sort of like dynamic here. You've got this sort of graphic on these arrows here. You've got a bit of rusting away there, which you've got the change down the gate. I think if you're talking about calling it cemetery gates, you want the cemetery gates. You've got enough of a lead behind it to sort of like give you that impression, don't come in here, which gives you something threatening. Here you've got sort of, oh, do come in. And I think you've got to get this, you want to try and get an atmosphere of sort of like not coming in rather than coming in. So I think if you'd have taken it slightly over to the right hand side, and again, I'm assuming you probably could get to the right hand side because you've probably got a clear way there. But I think you've got a better picture. So Cemetery Gate scores 14. Safe. Again, you got it's a picture with a connection now. It's sort of does it say safety? I don't know. It's slightly sort of obscure there. But having said that, you've got this lovely connection between the dog and his owner, and you've got that impression that he's now safe. Safe from what? I'm not quite sure, but it is quite a strong picture. You've got that connection. It does have a bit of art action. It's well worked. You've got sort of like good detail in mostly in his face, slightly burnt out there, but you've got that sort of good detail. You've got good detail of that guy's face, despite the fact he's in shadow. He doesn't have to be looking at you because he's got that connection with his partner there. Safe scored 15.
Melissa Butterworth.
And Toy Story, again, you've got a very sort of like literal interpretation here. You've got this sort of like wooden card figure, potato head man. Again, you've got to be a little bit careful. Like you have that mural, you're taking a picture of somebody else's art, so just be a little bit careful. Because I say careful, it's sort of like you've got to add something out. When I say that, you've got to add something out for you as a photographer. What are you sort of saying with that picture? As it is, it's sort of like this is like a sort of a record shot. At least with the mural, when you have that sort of you have that impact of somebody coming through the picture, which you wouldn't always have there, irrespective of whether they've been put in. This one, it's a very sort of straight record shot, very similar to a couple of the others. Again, it's very sort of flat. There's no real blacks, there's no real whites. You've burnt the top of the picture as the sky is burnt out. You could have cropped that off. I'm sure you could have got better contrast. You've got a reasonable degree of sort of focus there. You could have made more out of that picture. I think I say it is a bit flat. So unfortunately, Toy Story only gets 11. You got that right? That's it for the black and whites.
That's it for black and whites, yes. So it's time to continue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Here we go, round two.
There we go. We're all sort of suitably refreshed after the break. Ready to go for the second half. Right. Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. Now, it took me a while to figure this picture out. First I was like, this picture had impact, but I didn't understand why at first. But then when I understood why, it sort of gradually went down in my estimation, unfortunately. And I say, it is, like I say, us judges are simple lots, and are a simple lot. Sometimes we need to sort of like, we like a bit of mystery, but we like an explanation. And I sort of looked at this picture and I thought, well, that's quite good. You've got sort of like Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy. Quite good, yeah. Fits the title. Not quite sure where this temptation came in from. But then you sort of because being intrigued as I was, I googled it, and essentially this is a picture of a plate with two eyes on it. I didn't know whether the cherries had sort of like been sort of like photoshopped on there, whether they'd been taken separately, but no, they're actually on a plate, a transfer printed plate. So the more I looked at this, the less I liked it. Having said that, it does have that impact. It is slightly different. You've got a round picture rather than sort of like a square rectangular picture. But like I say, at the end of the day, you've got a picture of a plate with two eyes on it. How you got the eyes, I'm not quite sure. Again, I'd hope you sort of like use something that resembles an eyeball to take that picture. So I say this when this was sort of went in, this left me too intrigued that I had to check it out. And I say, at the end of the day, it is a picture of a plate with two eyes on it, and I say it just left me a little bit, I say disappointed. I still gave it sort of 15 marks, but I say it's one of those which didn't sort of, it's difficult to sort of say. It didn't sort of leave me sort of like wanting more. It left me wanting less almost. So Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy got 15.
Brad Cheek.
Right, Stephen King's It. This is a very sort of light, bold picture, and I think it works slightly better on sort of like the bigger screen as well. Again, it's sort of like quite a threatening picture. You've got the scary clown down this side. He just disappears into the picture here, though you do just see enough of his boots to give him that outline. And you've got that sort of white face staring at the child. Very sort of like brightly, it's very sort of like bright yellow, just about make out the legs again, fairly dark, and there's these sort of bright red balloons. But yeah, and that's the question, like we did with Freddie in this first half, which is more scary, clown or the child? I think it's the child. You can't see the face. Is it a child? I don't know. I really like this picture because it does sort of like give you that sort of. There is a mystery there. Unlike the first one, there's a mystery, but it's a mystery which leaves you asking more in a good way, I think. So it's got 19.
Carol Weatherly.
Submerged. I think this has been done quite cleverly, and again, it's one where I did have to sort of check it out. It is I don't know if it's a book or a film, it's one of the two. I think you've been quite clever because you've taken a picture of a sort of like a wet muddy path, and you've got that reflection in it, which makes it look as if you're sort of underwater looking up. And I think it works quite well. It's slightly mysterious. It looks like it's taken somewhere by the railway line. But I say it does have that air of mystery. It does have that sort of like. I like the way you've got sort of like. You have got sort of it's quite dark at the top half of this picture, and it just gives us sort of a feeling of oppression, and it does make you sort of feel almost like you're trapped there. So I quite like Submerged, even though I've never heard of the film or book before, and that one got 16.
Daniel Stott.
Yeah, mixed reaction there, I feel. The French Connection. Yeah, I'm not quite sure how this connects with the connects, if you pardon the phrase, with the film. But again, this left me puzzled for a long time, and for a long time I wasn't very keen on this picture. I'll explain why in a minute, but I think it could have been made a lot stronger at what point. It is quite difficult when you're taking sort of portraits of people to take a full length portrait or even a half length portrait. Portraits always tend to be, I'm not saying they're easy, but they tend to work better when they only show sort of like the top half of a person. I think if you just sort of like cut it off there and sort of cut half the picture off, it just gives you a stronger feeling. I think because your eye goes between that hand to that hand to his face and goes around in a circle, which isn't always a bad thing. But I think in this case you want to be a little more abrupt. So I would have sort of cut that picture off, almost the bottom half of that picture, and I think it would have had a little bit more impact. What I do struggle with a little bit is it does, and I say in these politically correct times, it does sort of like there's a bit of undertone of sort of racial and national stereotypes there, but which some people might not like. Again, I say you've gone out to shock. It does shock. Does it shock in a good way? I don't personally. It doesn't sort of appeal to me. So I've given the French Connection 14. Train Spotting. what I like about this picture, you've got this lovely sort of leaning line from the top with those whatever the arch or whatever it is of the bridge, and you've got this picture of the floor of the bridge and the railings taking you into the picture. All right, if you're realistic, it's not a train, it's a tram, but you've got it reasonably well framed within the picture. What would have been better is you've got it slightly on the right side there. Do the people add to the picture? I think they do actually. They don't obstruct it. I'm not keen on that sign there, but there's little you can do about that. So I like the way you've got that perspective that pulls you into the picture. And I say it's really sort of the brightness in the area. You could probably just tone that down a little bit. It would have made it a little bit more strong without left these leading. And I say the light from that side works really well. Just a little bit too bright on the train. Having said that, you're probably dealing with quite difficult lighting conditions there. So this train spotting scores 14. Jonathan Livingston Seagull, probably one of the shortest books that most people have ever read or seen, but I do like the way you've got we all see these seagulls lined up somewhere, and usually it's when you haven't got a camera. What I like about this one, you've got this one seagull just breaking ranks a little bit and looking straight down the camera, which works quite well. Considering the strong lighting, again, it's you've just got enough detail in there. It's not too burnt out, which is quite easy with any white birds. You've got that sort of leading on the railing. I say the only thing that really sort of, I would say kills the picture, but it doesn't do the picture any favours, are these two poles, which is a great shame. Now, you could probably, if with a lot of practice, you could probably get rid of them in Photoshop, but do you want to? I don't know. It would certainly make the picture stronger if you did that and just sort of like give a little bit more, take that second one down a little bit just to sort of improve it. It's a nice picture, well seen, but I say it's just those poles in the background which spoil it. Jonathan Livingston Seagull gets 13. Right, corduroy. This picture intrigued me. I I won't say dismissed it, but at first I wasn't it just left me sort of feeling so what. But the more I looked at it, the more I sort of wondered about it. And I say again, it's why I had to check up to see it was a book. And yes, it fits the inspired by sort of title. But it's a texture and colour picture, because you've got this sort of like these brown furrows in the earth. You sort of take you into the picture. You've got the whole sort of warm brown sort of feel of the picture that sort of like makes it sort of quite comforting. It's not a sort of picture that you're going to sort of like win any massive prizes for at exhibitions, but it's a pleasant picture. It's got a conventional sort of like artistic form with your sort of tree on the right hand side, and again you've got all this sort of the furrows in the foreground, and it does give a very sort of like pleasant warm feel about it. It's one of those pictures, the more you look at it, I'm not saying the better you feel, but it's sort of like it appeals the more you look at it. It's not one of those that immediately has impact. I always sort of say that sort of like you look at pictures that go into the LNCPU portfolios and things you put in for BPs and national exhibitions. They have to have impact. This doesn't have an immediate impact, but that doesn't mean it's a bad picture. It's quite a pleasant picture, and it just has that sort of like, I won't say warm, fluffy feeling, but it just has that warm feeling. It does sort of fit the bill for what it's for this competition. So corduroy got 16. Right, the hunt for Red October. Now, how much of that is that picture you're actually looking at? Just about that sort of hand width. And yet, does it say, is it anything about submarines? No. Is there red there? Yes. Where's the October? The October's the autumn. And to me, this is quite a stunning shot. Again, you're not likely to win anything in sort of like a BPR or CPAGB stuff. Having said that, you might do, I don't know, but it's very subtle, it's there. You could have put it anywhere in the picture, but you put it on the lower thirds, just off centre. It works really well. It's sort of like one of these, it's sort of like a picture you'd see in an exhibition. If you get a nice print of that, I'd say be careful if you do try and print it, because it'd be quite easy to print it badly. But I'll say, the way you process it here, you've just got it on its own. Enough of a hint of a little shadow there. And I think that's a stunning picture. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but again, and that was one which particularly appealed to me. So the Hunt for Red October got 20. A river runs through it. Very literal. That's your river. It's running through. You've chosen quite sort of like, not say, it is quite harsh like, but you've dealt with it quite well. Where we expect this to be quite shadowy, you've still got enough detail there. You've got enough detail in the water, it's not burnt out. It would have been quite easy to burn that out. This is where I use one of my daft judges' comments. I'd have liked to have seen a little more of the water. If you could have got a little more elevation, I don't know if, again, I don't know what's behind you. If there's rocks you can stand on, or if you just need to put the camera up a little bit further, just so you've got more of the river. I get the river running through it, but I'd like to see a little bit more of the river. I say you've dealt with the light quite well, because I say it is quite harsh. You can see here you just starting to lose a bit of detail. If you could have got that bit more elevation, and I say, these days I have a flip screen on my camera, so that I can hold it up there and still take a reasonably composed picture. It's not easy doing that like that, but it's amazing that sort of like difference lifting it up 2 foot in the air can make. But it's quite a pleasant picture. I'll say it's sort of like, again, nice sort of colours, not been overworked. So a river runs through it, scored, what's the place? 15.
Colin Yates.
Strange Planet. Again, it's a very strange, fits the title. It is strange. I haven't got the faintest idea what it's a picture of, but it just gives that impression of a planet. You've just got this curve, whether it's sort of like some sort of lit bulb or something, I don't know, but it works to me quite well. In fact, the only where it sort of works less well is up in this corner, where you've got sort of like a little bit of texture. I'd just like that. I'd like that to have been a bit more vague, but the overall impression when you look at it is you just sort of like you do spend your time looking at it, but it's the colours really. You've got sort of like these pure white, you've got these sort of like every shade of the spectrum through, sort of like reds here, over the blues and greens here. It's an intriguing picture, not again it has a massive impact, but it just does sort of hold your attention in sort of like I say, in a good way. So Strange Planet, 17. Honeybee, Tom Petty. Now I'm afraid I'm going to be brutal with this one. But I say brutal from the point of view of artistic merit and photographic skills. Absolutely lovely, really good sort of detail. You've got sort of like this sort of honey almost dripping off the probably proboscis or nose of the bee. You've got sort of like great detail in the eyes, and this lovely sort of colour around the edges. You've even put a key line there to separate the picture out from the background, and then you've given it a title of a song. And what were you thinking of? I say, in a nature competition or an open competition, that would have probably been first place. As As it is tonight, it's getting 17. Because you gave it the wrong title. Why didn't you call it? Why didn't you call it B movie or something? Well, please take that in the right sort of frame, in the right sort of spirit. I say it's only marked down because of the title. Right, the Dam Busters. Got a sneaking suspicion this might. Got a sneaking suspicion this might be taken by the same person that did the black and white version.
No, it wasn't.
Was it? Doesn't matter. And it doesn't affect me judgment on this. It's a very different. It's a very different shot to that. It's obviously taken at the same. I'm guessing the same aeroplane. Maybe at the same time. This one I think is a good. It's a good picture. It's got a great detail of the aircraft. Great detail of these guys sort of sat round, waiting to go. This is where the problem starts with a little bit. It's sort of like you then sort of like lose a little bit of realism, because would these guys ever be sat around an aircraft so brightly lit? Probably not. Having said that, you know, it's been nicely sort of staged, nicely sort of set up. I'm not that convinced, but because in the previous one, and I will, unfortunately, whether it's by the same person or not, I will draw the direct comparisons. Because you've gone out and got the bigger picture, I don't think, sometimes the bigger picture works, sometimes sort of homing into, or zooming in to get a sort of more close-up picture works. Depends on the subject. In this instance, I don't think it worked quite as well, because you sort of like left wondering, what's all this smoke? You sort of think, is it an engine starting up? No, the fellas are stationary. So I don't think the smoke sort of helps here. When you're going close to the picture, it doesn't really distract. The thing that does distract on this picture is that bit of smoke there, which is brightly lit. Your eye automatically gets pulled out to that. And I'm sure you're going to tell me that was how the moon looked. But to me, that doesn't quite look real. Probably the moon was there and you've in some way changed it, but it doesn't look real. You can come and tell me afterwards it's exactly how it was, but sometimes what it looks like and what it seems to look like are different things. And I've had people come and, I think the last judging I did, I criticised somebody for a sort of like a seascape. And I said, it doesn't look realistic. They said, oh, it's exactly how I took it in the camera. But if it doesn't look real, you've got to try and make it look real. I said, what it doesn't look real is there's sort of like clouds here, and I would have expected to see some over the moon, but it just seems a little bit too sharp to my mind. Having said that, it is a good picture. And I do like the colours and the clarity you've got on it. I just think you could have sort of honed it up a little bit more. So this version of the Dam Busters scored 16, sorry.
Michael Yates.
My Fair Lady. Now, this is another one where it sort of went in and out of my favour, this one, but it did sort of oscillate between sort of like good and, say not good and bad, but sort of like, I liked it and I didn't like it, and a bit parts of it which I like. I like the way you've actually sort of, you've staged it with the way you position this lady's head. You've got it sort of like, what looks like a vintage car, vintage bus or whatever in the background. You've got her turning around, so you've got a good deal of modelling light on her. Slightly dark in that time, but not too bad. It works quite well. You've got a nice look on the face. Because you've got her tilting round, that works really well. You've got sort of like good shadow. You've got good shadows there. It's not too deep. You can see enough detail in it. The things where it could be improved, and I say certainly improved, is you've got this red blob here, which I'm guessing is the reflection, because if this is taken through a back window or something, that's probably a reflection of somebody who stood next to you. Now, I think you could probably easily get rid of that area of red there just by turning it to black and white and blending it in carefully. because that, you're looking at the eyes and you say, what's that red there? It does distract. The other thing, I think you've been a little bit too heavy-handed with the way you've done the vignette on it. I just think you've sort of like lost some of the surround there, and you've just gone completely white in some of those corners now. Yes, I think the brighter vignette does work on this picture, but I think you've just been a little too heavy-handed there. And I say it wouldn't take too much to just hone that to be a little better. So I think it's a nice picture, but it's a picture with still a little more to do on it, really. My Fair Lady got 15.
Tina Cordial.
A burnt out case. Again, this is what I had to check out, and it does sort of suit the inspired bike. You got the record 2 cars here. Do they look like they're burnt out? Yeah, I think so. They look pretty. You got a good feeling of dereliction there, and the way the angle you shot them at works quite well. Good colours, good detail in the shadows, but it's again similar to some of the others. It's taken at the wrong time of day. You've got very harsh light on it, and it doesn't really. Or getting them at a different time of day would probably work a little better if the sun's over there. So I'm guessing if you waited till later in the day when the sun came round. I know it's not always practical to sort of do that, but sometimes you can't always do that. But you've got a little better lighting on, the side. At the moment, you're looking at both sides of both cars are in shadow. It would have looked a little stronger if you'd have had a bit more light on that. Yeah. If you know where they are and you can get a chance to go back and get them in better light, do. But I say it's a little bit, the lighting's just a little bit too harsh. Nice colours, but I say you'd love to get it a little bit stronger. A burnt out case scored 14. Predestination again. Title I had to check out. Sci-fi sort of movie. And I quite sort of like this. I quite like the sort of effect you've got. Normally you'd sort of want to see sort of detail in this blackness, but I think that's the deliberate effect you're trying to sort of get. You're trying to provide the darkness to provide the mystery, and I think you've just about got the balance of it more or less right. I like the sort of way you've got the colours. You've got this figure here presented in front of it. I'm assuming you've sort of got some means of producing the light just by whirling the string of lights round. It works quite well because you've just got enough of the figure. You've got a bright sort of patch there, and you can't see anything this side again, which gives it an air of mystery. The bit of brightness there, and again, I know it's easy to sort of say you've got to darken that down a bit, but again, it does just provide a little bit too much there. Again, you could probably shade that in a bit or provide it a bit and put a bit more colour in. So Predestination, I say I quite still like that. It's very unusual. It's sort of it's almost sort of central in the image, and sometimes that's not always good. I think it works well in this case. So Predestination got 18.
Philip Almond.
On the waterfront. Now, you again, in a conventional way, you've been quite sort of bold here because you have gone for a sort of like a very sort of panoramic type shot, almost a letterbox type shot. I think that works really well because if you'd have included more water, it'd have just been too blue. If you'd included too much sky, it'd have been too blue. You've got a very sort of ribbon sort of picture there almost. Which is great, and I say you have got the feeling of on the waterfront. Wouldn't it have made a better time to start to been sort of like that Riviera touch or something? It just feels a bit more Riviera than it does waterfront. But having said that, it fits the bill. Similar to the burnt out case, I think you've gone. It's very sort of like it's very bright round here. Now you have got the distinction between all those boats which are in the harbour. Again, it would have helped if you'd have taken it earlier, probably earlier in the day. I'm guessing I always try and figure out where the sun is in these pictures. I mean, it's probably sort of like you taking it early in the day, they've probably got a little better sort of modelling light. Because you look at this building, all right, you've got detail in the shadows, but it's sort of, you can't see very much there apart from sort of where there are dark patches. So if you could have got it a bit earlier in the day, but I say it is a pleasant picture, and I do quite like the fact you're waiting for this boat to come into view, and it gives you that point of interest. If there had been nothing there, nothing, it gives you sort of like, gives you something to sort of hold your attention. Again, it's quite a nice picture. On the waterfront scored 14. Horrible Histories. Again, and there's another one taken at a sort of a battle enactment. What I like you've done about this is you picked out this drummer boy, stroke girl, I'm not sure which. Pardon me for blending the sexes. But that's your subject of the picture. But I say the way you sort of capture them with all the sort of like dead people around them is quite good. You've got sort of a great sort of context. You've got these people nicely out of focus behind. The focus is there on the drummer boy. What you could have done better is I think you've gone sort of like fairly central, but I think you could have probably been a little more brutal with the cropping. Right. You can almost sort of cut it off there. You've got this sort of whatever that is stuck on the side. It looks like a musket just poking in around this guy's head. This drummer's out of focus, and your eye does get torn between that drummer and that drummer. They're both in very similar roles. Isolated off there almost, so you can always sort of cut that guy in half. Just get rid of the red there, and I think you've got a much stronger image. But I say I do sort of quite like the way you've done that. Just if you cropped it a bit more, I say harshly, a bit more close on that far side, I think you'd have a great picture. 14 Horrible History scored. Blade Runner, again, very graphic picture, very similar to our Android's A Dream of Electric Sheep. Is there a connection there? I think probably. I do like the way you've got this graphic sort of like skyscraper background. You've got the literal blade, and you've got this figure running up it, and you've blurred it quite nicely to give the impression of the running. I'm not quite sure the reflection works quite as well, but having said that, it just gives that impression of the sword lying on the table. Again, I think that's it's sort of like similar to the Android Dream of Electric Sheep, and I've probably given it the same mark, coincidentally. Yes, 16.
Steve Weatherly.
Right, Crash by J.K. Ballard. Yeah, again, fits the title. Where did you get the Raptors to throw onto this car? Again, you've got this slight sort of, and I do sort of pick these up, unfortunately. That's somebody else's artwork that they've positioned, and I think, I'm not sure where it was, but it's somebody's artwork with a bit of battered up a car and stuff a rock in it. Have you given enough that picture? Have you given enough of yourself in that picture? I don't. Well, again, it's my own personal opinion, but I don't think you have. You just don't get me wrong. It's worth taking a picture of something unusual like that. Is it strong enough to win in the competition? I don't think so. It's like that, like the Potato Head Man we saw. It is a picture of somebody else's artwork. It is colourful. You could have. To make it strong, you could have sort of like taken a bit of brightness out of that rock there. It just is a little bit too bright. You've got the colours quite bold in the car and on the pavement, but that's the brightness in that needs toning down a bit. Unfortunately, Crash only scored 12. Through the Stargate. You nearly got me there. Film and TV series. Ooh, do we do a little nip of TV series? Could have said film and book. Anyway, I'm not going to mark you down for that. Taking pictures of these figures in front of sort of like sets is quite good, but it's not as easy as you might think it would be. I think you've gone quite good. You've got the Stargate rendered beautifully. The figures are quite sharp. Well, two of the figures are quite sharp. This one isn't. This one's just going out. I think the figures are where you want to look at. I think sort of like you've got this sort of like glass ripple type of effect. You could have softened it. If you'd have softened that down a little bit, it would have worked a little bit better. So do be careful you get the figures in focus. I would prefer something. I don't know what you've got to actually sort of like lead in, but it could have done with a little bit more space at the bottom. I'm not sure you've chosen a brilliant background. You just sort of try and use some trees there, but I say if you'd have got rid of that bright spot again, it would have worked a little better. Do keep doing these sort of pictures because I'm saying they can be quite sort of like fascinating and sort of like enduring when you look at them. But I say this one doesn't quite work well, but do keep doing them. This one scored 13. Dracula, yeah, that sort of fits the bill, doesn't it? And I love the sort of expression you've got on the face, and the sort of, I don't know whether you sort of whether the person was wearing sort of dark contact lenses, or the black eyes look really good, the fangs look realistic or realistic enough, and the expression on the face is brilliant. And the way doesn't matter if you chop the head off, that's quite okay. The blood, I just think you've gone bold and actually sort of like just used a monochrome sort of picture and just put a little bit of colour in. I think you could have been a little bolder with the colour, to be honest. I'll say just make that red stand out. At the moment, the way it's coloured the way it's coloured looks a little bit like tomato ketchup. It might have been, I don't know. But I think you just need to get a little bit stronger on the shade of red there, and then that would be a really strong image, because I think you've got the expression and the sort of stance there, but it's just sort of like the rendition you've got on blood. It could have been really, really, really striking. As he was, I've scored Dracula 14. The Merchant of Venice. A very pleasant picture of Venice, and don't think anybody, well, I'd be very surprised if you turned around and said it wasn't Venice, but it looks like Venice today. So you've interpreted the title of The Merchant of Venice. Is it a play? Is it a book? Is it a film? Well, I think it's suitably enough near a film and a book to be acceptable. You've gone very bold and very almost sort of like a painterly effect, but I think it works quite well. It is quite a good rendition of Venice. I've given Merchant of Venice 15.
Colin Yates.
The Art of Movement. These sort of pictures are sort of quite popular. I've never actually tried them myself, and I think sort of like I do have quite a bit of admiration, because they must take quite a lot of staging and quite a lot of effort to actually sort of get things right. I think you've got what you've got here. You've got a lovely, the way you've got this sort of like arc of her back, and the shape of her sort of like toes pointing out. You've caught her in mid-air, and you've got this explosion of the powder really well. And is there anything which I don't like about it? There's not a lot that I don't like about this picture, to be honest. If I'm being really picky, you've got a light spot down here. And should you put a key line around the edge? I don't know. Probably you're okay. It works well. If you hadn't got this spot here, it wouldn't have really mattered. And I say, you see that spot? It just distracts slightly. The only other thing, which again, it looks unnatural, but it's probably exactly how it appears. You've got a shoulder blade there, sort of sticking up a little bit, and that's probably how it was. It just looks a little awkward, but that's how it is. But I quite like the way you've caught it, because you've got the You've got sort of like that lovely movement in the hair as well as the arch from the back and the flicking back of her hands. So the art of movement scored 18.
Ruth Lockery.
Angry Birds. I'm guessing this is pretty much a sort of grab shot of some young starling blackbird or something of the likes. I do love that sort of look of it looking straight down your lens that it's going to come and get you. I think that's really good. The way you sort of call that look on her face, those tufts sticking out. It does look really good. It's a very contrasty sort of picture, and I think that's that's where you could have been a little bit more sort of like bold with your choices. As it is, you've got sort of like a lot of detail on this side of the picture from there onwards, which doesn't really add anything onto it. I do like the fact you've got him poking through this sort of V shape. That works really well. But this is very bright and doesn't add anything to it. This is similar to this. You can almost sort of cut it there, and that would look a lot stronger picture. Play around with your contrast and your highlights, and just drop the highlights to the back there, and get a little bit more contrast in his feathers. Would look a lot better. Again, it's one of those which is sort of like a picture in the waiting, if you know what I mean. There's a lot there which could turn out into quite a good picture. But I think you still need to do a little bit of work, and I think it's doable. It's not difficult. You can easily sort of like, especially the cropping bit, you just chop it off there, and I say you just play about with your contrast and just do a bit of shading here and there just to sort of make it look a lot better. As it is, it only scores 13, but I think that could provide a lot stronger picture. Again, good reaction from the video. I do like this sort of like the way you've done this modern take on Sweeney Todd. I think it's quite good. I think you've done it really well. The lighting on it is quite well. You've got sort of like the darkness of the in this figure, kind of swayed by a towel. You've got a menacing look on his face. You've got just darkness on that side, but you've just got enough detail to pull things out. What I really like, there's a couple of really nice details here which I like. I like the fact you've got this sort of like picture in the background. Was it there when you took the picture? I don't know. It certainly adds to the atmosphere. And I like these two sort of cute but slightly threatening teddies in the bottom left corner. However, what I think would improve the picture is you've got sort of like they were there by accident or design. So you've got these, and you've got that pit, and you've got that menacing picture there, which is great. However, you do have to watch what's when you're taking sort of these shots. You do have to look what's in the background. And I say you've got an interesting piece in the background, but then you've got these two sort of like detecting things, and you've got this very bright light. That very bright light. In fact, I looked at I can't do it here, but. I mean, I looked at it over. You just cover that light up, and that's it. Have a look. Just put your thumb over it, and it looks a lot stronger of a picture. And I think again, it wouldn't be too difficult to actually sort of tone that down or clone something in behind that, just to make that, just to sort of get your focus on the guy. Because it is the way you picture this guy with holding up the cutthroat razor is really good. So I think that again needs a little bit more, but I think that's quite a strong image. So I've given that one 17.
Peter Kay.
Right, the Blues Brothers. This is a picture of two sort of like, I say a picture of two halves. It's a picture of sort of like lots of pluses and lots of minuses, unfortunately. I'm used to having to start off with the negatives and the negative points first. The biggest problem with this picture is the actual sort of the quality of the image. You've got sort of like very sort of like burnt out highlights there. You've got a lot of busy sort of like writing. Any writing in the picture, your eyes will almost importantly get sort of drawn to it first. and they always, I'm not saying always, mostly provides a distraction. In fact, we've got one coming later that not a distraction, part of the picture. These really aren't part of the scene, and they do distract you. What I do like about it, and I said, sorry, just going back to the negative points for a minute. The detail and the sharpness on the figures isn't great. And the best definition you've got is on Little Pepper there. And I say the strong point about it though is what you have got, which worked really well. It's just the quality lets it down. You've got good strong connections. You've got the this guy with the guitar looking at the child. You've got Peppa Pig looking back at him. You've got these children sort of like looking, sort of following him down the street. And you've got this what looks like their mum, the young mum, sort of there with a big smile on her face. Their part of the image works really well, but the overall quality of the image does unfortunately let it down. So there are some good aspects to that, but I'll say the overall quality and the brightness of the background let it down unfortunately. So the Blues Brothers scored 13. Yeah, that's a Shady Wood. Handle. Well, it's not a song, but it is a piece of music. But again, let's discuss the photographic merits of this. Now, you can sort of like look at it, nothing's in focus, nothing's sharp. Now, I'd like to hope that's what people were meaning this to be like. Yeah, I don't know whether this has been produced by an intentional camera movement or it's been blurred in Photoshop afterwards, but it kind of works. I do really like the way the sort of colours and the sort of the overall softness of the picture. Pictures don't have to be absolutely bitingly sharp to be brilliant. This has got a real sort of like softness about it, but you've got enough of the shapes in there that gives you that sort of form. And I do like the way you sort of like presented the picture. These lovely warm tones here, and these sort of like green lichens on the bark work really well. You've got nothing sort of too deep in the shadow. But again, you've given it a music title. I think you could have probably come up with a better title than that again, but I'm giving it 15.
Mike Atkinson.
Star Wars, yes. I was waiting to see what reaction that got. It was sort of like a sort of muted, sort of like laughter, and some sort of like not quite sure. Again, it left me with this sort of probably about with how serious you were trying to be here, whether it was meant to be humorous or not. It is quite humorous. I don't know whether it's meant to be, but I do look quite on the fact you've got this, the way you put this figure with the lightsaber has worked well. You put it in. I'm guessing you put it into the picture again. From a lighting point of view, it looks like it's a composite. It works okay. You put these sort of like piles of stones. Were they there? Were they not? I don't know. Just the background just looks a little bit incongruous. It doesn't look like sort of a desert planet or anything like that. It looks more like the Lake District or Wales or Scotland. And maybe that's what sort of like the rebel forces are living on now, rather than desert planets. But I say there are the way you've done it. I say I don't think it's meant to be taken in too serious a way. So Star Wars got 14. Home Alone. I like this sort of very subtle play on words there. You put a home, you put it alone in the middle of a forest. I do like the way you got the forest colours. The actual home stuck in the middle, or just slightly off the centre. I couldn't actually figure out whether that was actually whether it's actually a straight picture. It does look like it's a fairly sort of straight picture. I just think sort of like it's a little bit too bright. It just needs to be, again, played a little bit with the contrast just on that part. So the surrounding part looks good. I just think there's a little bit right on there. That's a little definition and sharpness there. But I do it's a quite a sort of simple picture, but it works quite well. I gave that one 14. Again, a little ripple of sort of like of chuckles there. Jurassic Park. I'm guessing it's a composite image, but I'm simply going to tell me it's a straight picture next. And to be honest, you've done it quite well because you have sort of gone in sort of like you have sort of gone in sort of fairly close on the head of the dinosaur, and in the way you sort of blended the industrial wreckage in the front of it. Again, it works quite well. Yeah, there is. I don't know whether that's sort of still part of the glass or it's the houses in the background. I don't know. Oh, that's a house. That looks like a house. Those look like a house down the bottom. I'd have got rid of those houses, to be perfectly honest. But again, it's not. This I think is meant to be taken fairly light-heartedly. So I think it's all right. It's sort of like quite humorous. So I gave that Jurassic Park 14. Choose photography, train spotting. It's a bit different from the other train spotting you've got to admit. But it depends how well you know the film Train Spotting, but sort of like I think whoever's taken this picture has gone to sort of some quite extraordinary lengths, or unless this is what normally happens on a Saturday night in Lancaster. Please tell me afterwards. What you've done here is you have actually sort of got it quite. You've got the railway lines running in from the side, sort of taking you into the picture. You've got this character sort of sat there saying, "Choose photography," which is not exactly a line verbatim from the film. Stroke book. Has anybody ever read the book? Unless you've got to read it out loud. I have tried reading it once. It's a nightmare. It's written in Scottish dialect. It's an absolute nightmare to read. The film's much better. But I say you have sort of captured the character of the people in the film. This is one where we have put the writing in, but you're meant to look at the writing, which works, I think, to be honest. I'd like to see somebody put a little bit of little camera in the front of it, just to sort of give the choose photography, as if you would. It just gives that sort of like warm view, sort of, and people sort of say that it's a film that glamorises drug taking. I don't think it is. It is sort of like a comedy tragedy, if you ask me. And I think this sort of like captures that sort of essence of it. What would I like to see to improve it? The only thing I've faulted on is this hand looks slightly out of focus when you compare it with what's on the rail. But maybe a shift speed, and maybe sort of like a bit of movement in the arm. But I like, again, you have gone out to, it is quite a provocative picture, but it's provocative in a slightly less offensive way. But some people might not like the fact it's sort of a drug-related picture, and I would understand that. But tonight I scored Train Spotting 19. Silence of the Lambs. Very different from the other Silence of the Lambs, which again, what I like is you've got two, what I think are quite good interpretations of the title. Yet they're completely different. There are some people who may sort of wonder what this is to do with the film, and it's more probably to do with the book and the way that the film was advertised, in that they didn't have sort of like what would have been the Hawkshead moth, and this is a different moth, I know. But I like the way you sort of got you got a very high key sort of picture of the girl. You got those green eyes, and you got the bright but very sort of muted colours other than the green eyes, and you picked out the moth in very bright colours. Really, I think it's really well done. The way you position that moth is quite good, because you've got the antennas going under the nose, and I'm guessing the moth's been having on afterwards. But I just like the way you've done that. It's been done subtly but really well. It would have been quite easy to burn out all the detail in the head. I think you've just got enough detail there to make it out. You've got the detail of it all there. But I say you've got a high key, but you've got enough sort of definition there to sort of pick out where her nose is. You could use a better choice of words there, but so Silence Alarm scored 20.
Carol Weatherly.
Smaug's Eye, the dragon from The Hobbit. Yeah, it looks like a dragon's eye. Very sort of bold colours. Again, it's one of those where it asks me questions. I do like the way you've got the rendition of the skin, but it's the same light as the dragon's eyes, and it does look a little bit, how can I say, it almost looks a little bit two-dimensional. I don't know where this picture has come from, whether it's sort of projection onto something, I don't know. And I don't sort of quite sort of see where you've got these sort of like cracks here. It just asks me too many questions, unfortunately. And I say it doesn't sort of like immediately sort of shout out to me about the sort of what it is or what the content, other than the title. And I say the title's appropriate to what this is, but does it appeal to me? I'm afraid it doesn't. Again, it leaves me asking too many questions about what it is and what it's meant to well, I know it's meant to represent the dragon, but how does it represent the dragon? I don't know. It just looks sort of too flat and two-dimensional. So unfortunately, Smaug's Eye only got 11. The bicycle feet one. It's the bicycle feet. Again, smattering of humour there. I do like this. It's sort of like the remains of the bike. It's just sort of like a bike that's been hung up on the wall, and obviously perhaps over the years bits have been fallen off or taken off by various people. I do like the way you spotted it. It's well captured, well spotted. Again, it's very like some of the other pictures we've got. And again, we all go out on sort of like bright sunny days when we're on a holiday or out somewhere, and that's sometimes the only opportunity we get to get those pictures. The light's very sort of harsh on this, and so it gives it a very sort of like flat effect. And because the light's sort of coming down from the wall, you've got these shadows because you're on a vertical wall, so it looks like it's taken at midday. Not the best light usually. You could have probably maybe got a little bit more out of it processing wise, but I don't think so. But having said that, like I say, it's well shot and well spotted. So the bicycle feet's got 14. Right, A Song of Ice and Fire. What a song. We haven't got songs again, have we? No, don't worry, it's a book. I did check this one out because I immediately thought before that, A Song of Fire and Ice. No, it's a book. Again, it's very bold, and it's very sort of like if somebody's been painting with light, what they've used to paint with light, I don't know. Could be the reds and the whites seem to imply it might just be sort of like car lights, it may be bike lights, could be anything. Does it matter? Not really. It's just three colours. Three basic colours: white and blue. And I think it's a pleasant image. And again, it's one of those similar to the Red October one. It's sort of like a gallery shot rather than sort of like one that you'd submit for your own CPU, unless you were doing sort of a series on. And I think, it's like, I think it's sort of similar to The Strange Planet. It appeals to you, but in an abstract kind of way. I quite like it. Maybe not as much as some of the others, but I gave it 15.
Carolyn Phillips.
And final one tonight is Black Hole, Lowen. It's one of these, it's a very strange picture this. You're going to call it Black Hole, but then you said it's by Lindsay Lohan, which is a song. There are many choices you could have had for Black Hole in films. Why did you choose the song? I don't know. I think there's supposed to be a bit of humour there, but I think the Black Hole, just in case anybody hadn't spotted it, you could have probably sort of, if you'd met, and I say there's obviously it's meant to be a little bit humorous, but I think you need to sort of like focus in a bit there, because you've got all this distractions of leaves around here, these dead or dying plants, and this sort of stone wall. You could have sort of focused a little bit more on it and cropped it quite brutally to get that black hole, and then you could have given it a more appropriate title. It sort of gives me the impression you've done it in a bit of a hurry, which you may not have done, but I say, if you want to try and get a bit more impact, you need to go in a little bit closer on that one, because there's too much distraction there. Black hole got 10. Now, do you want the best picture of the night then?
Please.
Oh, tricky. It's going to be a colour one. Build your hopes up. And I think the one I'm going to go for is... I might go for a controversial one. I'm going to go for the Hunt for Red October. Whisperings there.
That's Steve Laurel.
Winners for this competition are... Well done, Carol. And the leaderboard for the year so far. Oh. Well, that's changed a bit since last competition.
There you go.
And look at that! All to play for next time.
You've got some people who are sort of like, you've got some people who are willing to sort of take a chance and do some bold things. And I say it won't always pay off, but keep doing them. And I say do them, because that way you develop as a photographer. You get to sort of where you want to be. And I say I did sort of say to Carol that I'm trying to give some sort of guidance on some of the pictures as to whether they'd be sort of like suitable for going forward in sort of like national competitions. It's very difficult to sort of like say that, because there are some pictures like your winning picture tonight I don't think would do well in a national competition. But if you said presenting it at a gallery for somebody, then sort of, well, but it does take that work to sort of do that. We used to have one guy who came to our club, never used to win anything in competitions, but he loads of pictures published in Lancashire Life, and that was a skill, his ability to sell his photography to them. And there was nothing wrong with his photography, but he just didn't win that many competitions. So develop how you want to develop. Don't just develop just for winning competitions. That's not necessarily. There are people who sort of style suits competitions better than others, but just do what you want to do. Okay, I'll say thanks very much for having me.